guarding Bryant. Artest looking, gets it to Bryant. Bryant dribbling, has to put it up with the buzzer. Banks it in! He banks in the three! And the Lakers win the game!
Good morning, Syndicate members. What's going on, man? It's Wednesday. So you know what that means. That means we're live right here from Austin, Texas at Syndicate headquarters for Winning on Wednesday. As always, I'm your co-host, Tony Merwin. This guy to my right, the Jolly Ginger Giant, the king of Facebook groups, king of trucking insurance, the master of disaster, the tower of power, Lean Joe Green, the money-making machine.
Woo!
Joe Campert.
Let's go. Happy Winning on Wednesday, everybody. I love that intro. It's definitely my favorite. It gets me hyped up. Shout out to Mr. Merwin for being my fearless co-host on this show. We're just talking
The
about
hype man.
We've been doing this thing for about 3 years, man, every single Wednesday.
And you still get phone calls every 9
And
a.m. on Wednesday.
every 9 a.m. It's like you guys don't know I'm doing this show or something. But happy Winning on Wednesday, everybody. Y'all, this is the last live Winning on Wednesday of 2024. Isn't it crazy, dude? It is already December 18th because next week will be Christmas, y'all. And then we're into the new year. So we're excited for this show, for the last live episode of Winning on Wednesday for the year of 2024. It has been an amazing freaking year. If you guys can, let us know in the comments that you can hear and see us. I know we're running just a few minutes behind there, but no worries. We are here live with you today. Go ahead and start dropping those weekly wins in the comments too. We want to celebrate you no matter how big or how small. We've definitely got some wins to talk about with our guest today as well. But real quick, before we get going, as always, shout out to Viva Virtual Solutions, our main sponsor of the show. Thank you for everything that you do here within the group for all of our channels. Shout out to Lily Davies. You're amazing. Even just us sitting there messaging, going back and forth this morning, all the new thumbnails and everything that you're putting into the videos. You're just doing an amazing job. And to see literally like when we first started with you and not knowing how to do any of this to now what you're doing, it's just so freaking impressive. And we really appreciate you, Lily. And shout out again to Rob Lopez, who is the CEO and founder of Viva Virtual Solutions, man. Appreciate you, dude, and everything that you do here for Clearview. So thanks, Viva. If you guys are looking for a VA, definitely check out Viva Virtual Solutions. But you guys heard me bring it up earlier. You know what time it is. It's Winning on Wednesday, right? We got to start the show with our weekly wins. Go ahead and drop them in the comments. Let's go. Weekly wins, baby. Drop them in the comments. We want to celebrate you, Mr. Merwin. What you got, sir?
I've got a good one, man. It's the whole reason that we started Avila, and it is spreading abundance. Spreading abundance. Grace is out of the office. She is actually in Colombia hanging out with her family back just outside of Barranquilla, Colombia. And when I say spreading abundance, it's the whole why of that she is in the business. It's her why. It's become my why. And that is impacting and lifting up her family in Colombia. Right. And she is over there right now. She's kind of like if Mother Teresa and Santa had a child, that would be Grace, because she's over there. She takes a whole suitcase full of goodies for all the kids, Hot Wheels, cars, tennis shoes, clothes, anything that they might need to help them enjoy their lives a little more. And then gets to go hang out with all of her nephews, nieces, and sisters, brothers, all hanging out in Colombia, having a real good time. So she sent me a nice photo yesterday of all of them hanging out, having lunch. Just good thing, man. So that's the whole thing, spreading abundance, doing our best to lift up the family.
Absolutely. I know she's been busting her ass getting ready for that trip too and wrapping up AP. So I know that's important to her. That's awesome. Oh man, weekly win. Gosh, dude, we have had just a freaking awesome week so far. If I had to choose one, honestly, it was probably about some of you guys saw the video about my story, and finally, I've been writing that down, and it's just been a lot that's kind of weighed on me, and it's not again that I haven't really worked through it, but it's like to bring it back up and to share it. But it felt good, honestly, and it felt good to see the response and that people can relate to it, right? And that's kind of the whole, almost kind of spreading the abundance, and you can do that through social media and video and just being vulnerable as well. So that's probably my win, and we just had some great wins in Clearview. Just announced, if you guys didn't see, Victor Gonzalez is officially joined Clearview Insurance. Shout out to Victor if you're watching this, brother. We appreciate you. That's going to be a lot of fun to have him as our CMO within Clearview. So it's been just a great week, and ultimately I have to say a weekly win is who we have on the show. I called him last night just to catch up because of some of the news I saw that dropped, and some of that could definitely be a weekly win, and just called him, and then we start talking, and then I'm like, what are you doing tomorrow morning? And he's like, screw it, dude, I'm in. So y'all, I'm really excited to bring him on. He's been on both of our shows before. A lot of y'all still probably don't know Steven, and that's not to say that he ain't doing things that you should freaking know about, but he has really just grown to be one of my best friends in the industry, and really just in general, outside of the industry. It's really cool when an industry like what we have here in front of us in insurance can connect you with somebody where maybe it starts in insurance and then now it's obviously grown to so much more, Christmas parties and all that good stuff, right? So I'm really excited to bring him on, y'all. Without further ado, let's give a nice warm welcome to the CEO and founder of AffordaCare Insurance, Mr. Steven Guilfoile.
What is going on?
Let's go.
Hey,
Talking.
you got a syndicate shirt on? I didn't even see that. That's dope.
Yeah, saving it for you.
Let's go.
He picked
Tony,
that
where's
up
your shirt at? Actually, you got to put that Bruce Lee is about as good as you can get. So you get a pass on this one. You're lucky.
Well, real quick, we obviously know who you are, man. We love you. We appreciate you. For anybody that's listening that doesn't know who Steven Guilfoile is, dude, just give them a 30,000-foot overview of who you are and what you're about.
Dude, we are just, I think, kind of what we talked about before the beginning of the show. We just like to be good connectors to everybody in every industry, right? And so, our primary bread and butter is large group major medical and, different plans and policies kind of with groups. But really, at the end of the day, it's about kind of bringing people together, and that every single person in every single way is all sales related, right? So if you have connections and contacts you can work through and help other people kind of get in, and through connections you have, it's going to go, 10x for you and everything else too. So we've been doing this for going on 13, almost 14 years, I think. My math adds up, and thousands of agents. We're in every single state, and it's just the amount of things that kind of we've accomplished kind of just through, doing what's right for everybody and kind of just bringing people in on everything we've done has been, of course, amazing.
Absolutely.
Yes, dude. Well, real quick before we get going, you gotta. I mean, what's a weekly win for you? I know you said, "Oh, that's just a small one." That's a freaking big one. But go ahead, whatever weekly win. It can be personal or business or anything like that. What's a weekly win for you, my man?
Well, I'd say being on the show, the last show of the year. All right, we get on, and it could be anybody in the world, and it's the three of us. So I'm really grateful for that. Just feel like every day being your friend, Joe and Tony, just is a win there. We do have a pretty incredible partnership that we just again, this has been years in the making, but officially in paper with ADP for them to be working with all of our plans and integrate all the stuff we're doing with them. So obviously a decent sized company they are, and a ton of potential that we have, and it's really, really cool stuff. So
Yeah.
Yes, dude.
Absolutely.
That is sick, man. Well,
so does that mean that employees of companies that use ADP, when they're going through their benefit renewal at the end of the year, just check boxes and they can check off, yep, I want Steven Guilfoile, or I want.
Yeah. And so there's a couple different phases of it, but yeah, that's the end goal. And basically the fact that it's a plug and play that will have the ability to basically every single person that ever has ADP to have integrate with all of our stuff. So that's
Wild.
Yeah, pretty cool stuff.
Congratulations. That's huge.
That's amazing, man. Well, so take us back. You guys get to hear that, oh yeah, now I'm officially partnered with ADP with like just a turnkey freaking switch, right, to enroll thousands of people into all of our products that we offer. Obviously we didn't start there, right? So Steven, I know we talked a little bit about it backstage, man, but I would love for you if you could just kind of share some of your upbringing into the industry, and then even kind of how you ended up saying, you know what, dude, no, I am going to turn the impossible into the possible and go start AffordaCare and everything that you've done on that side, including Champ and everything that you're doing there too. Just talk through some of that, man. I think there's a lot of power. There's a lot of testimony there because of the world we live in. Hell, even just in the industry that we're in, there is just a ton of freaking naysayers, man. I saw a post the other day and it was just this guy was getting shredded and he sold like 700 apps. And then like, look, another phone call, dude. It's like they don't freaking know, man. I've been doing this for 3 years. But just like shredding this guy for like selling a bunch of freaking apps. And it's like, I would be saying, dude, I mean, I have no idea what you do. I've never met the guy, but I'm thinking, dude, that's awesome, man. Congratulations, right? But I know there's two sides of every quarter, every coin. We got a ton of freaking naysayers, man. We got a lot of people that will just, no, you're not going to be able to do that. And I know some of that was part of your story, Steven. So just take us back, man. Walk us through the beginning stages of AffordaCare.
Yeah, so I'm trying to find ways to make this story shorter. So I'll give different versions, and then the next time we talk, I'll give the other side of it. But started out, right out of college, making like $12 an hour, which again was insane money in North Dakota where I was growing up. And so, I mean, I was like, well, if I work 12 hours and I was working 2 jobs where I could work an overnight shift, so I could get like 100 to 130 hours a week in work or whatever. So I was doing like pretty good for, again, like kind of the circle and everything else that I was in, right? And I just remember like always like figuring out like, wanting like, having the ability to make more, right? And it's like, if they're making that house, that car, that dream, whatever, for somebody, like somebody's going to have that job, somebody's going to work hard enough, and what do I need to do for that to be me? So the first job ever took right out of college was door-to-door sales. And I remember that first week, it was just like the pitch was that I could make up to, like, there's one person in the company that was making like over like $60,000, $70,000 a year. And I was like, if I could make half of that money, I'd be making double what I'm making here. This is like the, absolute deal of a lifetime. And so I remember kind of vowing myself, like, no matter what it takes, I will 100% do this, because this is like the answer to what I've been wanting to do this whole time. And when my first week went out, I remember I knocked on, and again, every time I tell the story, like we had like 5 doors to this. And so we'll just say it's like 100 doors just for easy math. Like I literally like completely cold. No, just like we had like a little plat map where like in rural parts of the country, you can see like who's the landowner on this road. And so you might go up and the house is burned down 20 years ago, or you might go over and it's, somebody moved it. It had a general idea like where the houses were at least. And so it was like literally almost like 0 for 90. And it was an insane like experience, right? Because it's, you're doing something brand new, just like anything else you do in the world. Like you're going to suck at it because you've never been worse than you're going to be. And every single day is the best that you're going to be at that exact moment. And so I remember going through, and it was just, the vision was just so hardwired of like, I need to succeed in this. And so it was like the very last day of the week at like, 8, 9 o'clock at night, if you want to, we can say 11 p.m. for the sake of the story, but it was a door where I knocked on it. I got in the door and it was like, sold a couple policies. This was back in like the heart cancer accident type of supplemental days. And I remember it was about like $1,000 I made on that sale. It was like a humongous thing for what I could have sold and for what it was at the time for me too. So I'm like, dude, in 1 week and in 1 hour, I made more than I would have made in, like 2 or 3 weeks working. And I was like, well, if I can just knock on like 90 doors a week and get 1 sale, this is like the easiest job I've ever had. Right. So it's an extreme example, but it shows like, what if like that hadn't happened that week? And what if I'd gone that other week and like you're guaranteed to hit like 3 out of 100, but what if those 3 are 97, 98, 99. Right. And so it just, I think that was one of the biggest things I always think back, like, what if that person hadn't been home? What if I hadn't gotten that? What would that have done? And at some point, I feel like just being human, there's a point where you talk yourself out of it and you agree that it's impossible.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's almost like it's that bringing up the hypothetical before it's ever even happened. Nor maybe it never happens, right? Like you go to the next, well, they're not even going to be home. And it's like, so you just don't even go knock on the door. Question, you have an insane work ethic, obviously. And a lot of people don't maybe follow you on Facebook so they don't see all the, like, this dude runs like Ironmans and triathlons and marathons and all kinds of crazy shit. So you've got, but like, even what you're talking about, oh, dude, I just figured out you knew the numbers. I think that's also important. Something I talk a lot about is you got to know your numbers, right? So it's like, I know that, hey, if I'm making this much and I work this many hours and I can work the overnight, then I can make this much in a week, right? And I can work this much. Where does the freaking work ethic come from, though? Ain't nobody set out after college and be like, oh, dude, 120 hours and a night shift. Let's get it. Like, where does that come from? Is that something you think you've always just kind of been blessed with, or have you been able to like build that up over time? And maybe do you continue to have to build that up as you found success?
Well, I was actually thinking about this. So I was seeing my family for Thanksgiving, and I remember when I was like 6 years old, we'd like drive by houses and stuff, you know, just going to the grocery store, and they'd be like, hey, Mom, like, why don't we live in that house? And it's like, you know, a bigger house and you know what we're in. And it's like, just like, and we're like, no, I can't afford that. And it's like, no, Mom, it's easy. Just like work harder, just like work more hours and you can have anything you want. And this is at like 6, 7 years old. And now like looking back and like, man, like that was kind of like an asshole kind of kid comment kind of thing, right? But I think kind of shows the idea, right? Like if you want something, like it's made for somebody. And if you want to work hard enough, it's yours, right? Mm-hmm. So I think it was just kind of like that mindset of just at like a super early age. And I don't really know where it came from, but yeah, going back to kind of the you know, we're talking about like with marathons and Ironmans and stuff like that. I did the Dallas Marathon on Sunday, and I don't know if anybody else is watching it, but I am like, you know, in the those metal handles when you're in the bathroom and like going down the stairs or whatever. I feel like I need one of those chairs to get down the stairs and those railings to kind of hang in the bathroom, whatever. But I think when you do stuff like that, it's not about like for what it is. It's not about like the prize money or time. It's about like challenging yourself when you get into like a lull where life gets easy and complacent and compliant. It's really easy for you to just kind of, I think, take a back seat and just kind of coast through and not appreciate like, you know, what a challenge is again. Right. And so I think in business, there's enough the stuff that's going so right that I think it's only, you know, if you're blessed to be able to walk, to be able to have a career that you love, right? And if you're not putting everything into that, I think you're doing yourself and your life a huge injustice.
Selfish.
Yeah.
Is ultimately what I've always thought it boils down to. You're just being selfish.
But I mean, it's selfish, I guess, to yourself, right? Is that what you mean?
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah. To yourself, yeah, 100%. Because now you're not, I mean, you're being selfish towards yourself, but also other people, right? Because if you're not pursuing those challenges to do your best in everything that you can do, whether it's your job, your family life, whatever it may be, then you're not benefiting from what you could produce, and nor are the people that depend on you, or the people that you don't even know that are counting on you sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you guys this question, because I've always wondered, and I want to see if anybody has ever like experienced this before too. The weeks that I'm like really, really on and really focused, and I can like, I'm just, you know, working harder than like a normal week. I always feel like the other people that, again, I've never like, I don't have a direct relationship. Like they don't know if, again, like if I'm in bed or I'm on like every single call or whatever, but like, I feel like the whole team is just like up a notch when you're up. And I feel like when you're kind of having like a slower week, I feel like everyone else kind of like almost psychologically is like down even without that discussion. Do you kind of, have you ever experienced it before?
Definitely agree with that. 100%. Especially if, you know, if you're the team leader or if you're someone that has a lot of influence in that group or that team. 100%.
Yes. No,
I wonder how they know that. I wonder how they know to just kind of like take a week off when you're taking a week off. It's
hey, dude, I'm not gonna lie. I've definitely seen that. But that, I mean, ultimately, I think that goes back to it's why I do the House of Dreams so much, right? We talk about discipline is like the piece that's the foundation. It's the most important part. That's like getting there on time, right? Just showing up on time. Hey, we say 8 o'clock, you're going to be here at 8 o'clock, right? Okay, cool. But then how are you when you show up, I think is also important. Just because maybe you show up every week and I'm here every day and I'm working the long hours, but I'm a total asshole while I'm there, right? Or it's like, okay, I walk in and I'm exhausted because my kid's been up all night. Do I walk in and give everybody the finger and close my door? And that instantly is the vibe and the energy within the office. And I think, you know, especially if you're sitting in a leadership role and even if you're even just remote versus not remote, like say you get on a Zoom call, turn your cameras on. I mean, I can't stand when I have a Zoom call with somebody and they do not turn their camera on because, again, it's that energy. I instantly, I'm like, it's so weird. I'm trying to pitch a franchise to a black screen. Like, what the hell is this? Like, I'm trying to create a relationship and see, like, what are your thoughts? Like, what are the directions and goals you're trying to go? And so I think I love that you said that, because that is actually something extremely important to be aware of, that even if you don't think somebody, like nobody's watching you, I can promise you, I was just talking about this with somebody, there is at least one person not only watching you, but potentially looking up to you and what you're doing, right? We know that actions always speak louder than words. I think that's a really good point for sure.
Yeah. Well, and then you think about people, I mean, any kind of like TV personality, right? You want that like most excited, kind of bubbly experience possible, right? And so I've done things where I've like looked back on like a recording, whether it be a Zoom or even like a phone call, and your voice inflection, everything else really goes a long way. And it's like, there's really no way that you can be too energetic that like looking back, like I feel like when you rewatch it, you're more like stone faced than you realize you really are. And I think just, that extra smile or anything else goes such a long way with, just again, and maybe that's what it is, right? You're having like a slower week or you're sick or whatever. And even just like the tone and inflection of like how you talk to somebody brings that person down in energy or brings them up. So I think we'll do a study on that someday. Some kind of
maybe we can just use your app that can like scan people's like skin tone and give them health scores. Maybe that's something we just build into there.
maybe we can license a syndicate or something like that. We'll see.
There we now we're thinking. Now we're talking. Yeah. Well, so real quick, so let's go back to the start of AffordaCare, right? I kind of want to break down some of that story, and again, just kind of the mindset that goes, not only again, okay, hey, I've got the work ethic and everything, but also again, working through somebody basically or others saying that, hey, this is not going to be possible, right? And ultimately to the point of where, dude, I got to split off and do my own freaking thing, which is what you did. Break down some of that. I just want to go through some of that story, and then we'll talk a little bit more. I definitely want to talk about Champ. I want to talk about how you're able to use that, and even just all the other health stuff that you guys are doing within AffordaCare to connect people, right? Again, we were talking about it backstage. You've sent me multiple referrals in the past week. We were talking last night about who I'm going to introduce you to, and then you've sent stuff to Tony, and it's just such a reciprocal relationship with you. But before we get there, I want to hear kind of the start of it and how, like, what was the mindset that went into that?
And just to be clear, the reason I send stuff to Tony is I don't want him getting too jealous that everything's going to you, Joe. So I got to balance you like my children and make sure the same number of presents for Christmas.
No, you don't want to send me any Medicare. I might sign him up for Medicaid. I don't even know if you can do that, but
I don't even know if you know how to spell it. So yeah, that's definitely a huge win for Tony there. But yeah, I mean, the idea was just, again, and I think why setting goals is important is, when you achieve those goals, I think it's one thing, but I think like the chase and the journey is so much more powerful. And I think that's the thing that I feel like looking back now, like I get, and I think a great way to kind of approach that is like, if you were to visualize like in 20 years, you're guaranteed, and there's some future fortune teller genie that says in 20 years, you'll have whatever life that you want to have, right? The house, the car, the spouse, the backyard, whatever, right? And you have the option of either just teleporting in time and living that 20 years immediately, or you can have the journey of creating that whole thing. And I feel like every person, at least that I know, would rather have the second, where they experience the journey and getting that versus just appearing and arriving, because once you have it, I mean, it's almost like the fun's gone. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I think that's it.
Appreciate it as much.
Yeah. And then you also look at that. It's like, yeah, you have something that's like without friends and family that you have, what use is a big house, whatever, if you just going to be there by yourself. Right. Yeah. So going through that moment, I guess, whereas, having that drive and the dream, right. And of course our dreams change and we accomplish something. And there's another, big picture we want to accomplish, but it went from helping one person at a time to realizing that, like, at the end of the day, what was told to me so much is, hey, we're insurance poor. Our health insurance, our major medical sucks so bad that we can't buy the supplemental thing, right? So the idea was, what do we do to help the initial biggest problem, right? And for healthcare, that's most people's biggest expenses. And for most businesses, outside of payroll, it's their second biggest expense outside of that, right? And so it went from, I mean, the money you make is directly correlated to the number of people you help. And so if you can help a lot of people with one door, right? And so if I was so bad knocking on doors, right, and I need 1 out of 90 people, I might as well have 10 people on the other side of that door that can talk to me on that. So that's kind of how it grew. And I guess kind of over time, there's a lot of companies that, if you guys know the term, it's called LOA, which again, there's a lot of great agencies and people that have that. But the idea behind that is when you have that, right, all the money flows to that one person, and they ultimately can decide with the stroke of a pen if they want to turn all your commissions off and everything you've done for your life. So that had happened to me 3 different times where had built up an incredible life and overnight. And actually this was the most recent one was 2 days before Christmas, shut the doors down, turned all the phones off, and basically kept everyone's money and just jumped down.
Damn. How long ago was that?
That was 2 days before the start of AffordaCare. So basically the idea behind that was that over that weekend through Christmas break and before the new year, we had like the website, the logo, the slogans, the everything else. And basically the years kind of leading up to that was kind of the foundation of it. And again, it all was based on the mindset is I never want a customer and agent to ever feel the way that I feel right now in this point. And so I think that's, with anything that's good or bad in life, I think you look at it as either you have success of whatever that means, or you have a story of something bad that happened and you can learn from it. And it goes to your book of stories and your experience that you have to share.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, dude. Your tests become your testimony, man. 1,000% can get behind that, man. As I was saying, that weekly win, just talking through my story and just kind of going back through and maybe so like even asking you these questions, isn't it wild like to kind of go back there and it's like, man, I haven't been back there in a while. Like, oh crap, it was like 2 days before Christmas years ago. Like, shit, it's been a while since I thought about that, right? And then it's like, but then you look at the journey and where we are now. I mean, it's so freaking crazy to see. But I'll tell you the journey, and even if maybe you chose to go on the journey, and this is really just words of encouragement and maybe even a challenge to some that are listening, is not really, in my opinion, I don't know, I guess you can technically you can disagree because it is my opinion, but I don't think it's worth it if you ain't doing it with other people, right? It sucks to be up there by yourself, right? It's Perry Lunsford says it's the rising tide that raises all ships, right? That's the tide that I'm trying to ride on. So I want to shift, and Guilfoile, the reason I want to shift to this is because honestly, dude, I think you're one of the best at it when it comes to not only creating and maybe manifesting relationships, but ultimately maintaining them and keeping those nurtured, right, and continuing to have those relationships. I mean, think about how we first met, right? I mean, it was years ago, and it was because you were impressed by one thing I said on a panel or something on stage at SWAT or something, and then that's how. And then here we are, dude. Like, I mean, seriously, you're one of my best friends. You know my family. You know my kids. Like, I mean, all this stuff, right? What is in your opinion, or maybe not in your opinion, your belief of the power of relationships and how it's changed and really kind of molded and formed your organization?
Yeah, I mean, I guess in 2023, not in premium, but revenue, we did $95 million.
Holy
and
shit.
It's not my
95 million, dude. Woo!
And
hold
so
on.
It's not an opinion, I guess. Give me the crickets one.
Hold on.
Right.
Oh no, that was that's the trombone.
There it is.
There you go. Okay. So I guess it's a belief, but I feel like there's a reason to stand behind it. And I guess the idea is that and this is from like almost no advertising, like no Facebook ads. Like this is purely almost every single thing completely organic, like all the way through. And, that goes to, me moving to Texas and not knowing a single person, right? Not having a family that's passing a business down to you and having clients, right? So this is like as literal as like bootstraps as you could get, right? And I think that the biggest thing I would take away from that is that when you are pitching something to somebody, they do not care at all. They don't give a hoot or whatever button you want to hit while I'm saying the word. But and the idea is that if you can make it about them, so instead of saying, hey, this is what I have to you, and if you do this, it will help me, figure out what you have to help them. So like if there's like a mutual person we have, and the great example is kind of like with ADP and payroll, right? We're going after the same client. We have the same people, right? So instead of saying, hey, refer me people, we had an incredible proposition that basically every single client that we have is going to give them almost $50 a month per person per payroll. And their payroll's probably about $30 a person, right? So we're literally telling them for every person that you bring us in, you're going to be able to go to your client and tell them we're going to literally pay you a net $20 and we'll do your payroll for free.
Right.
So that's the way that I think you do it, is not working about what you do or what you're selling, but about how you can kind of add value first. And as a, hey, by the way, this is how I can do it first, because nobody cares what you do at all, because that person is only caring about what they do. And if you can break that mold and create that bridge instead of everybody being in their own silo and always trying to help themselves, you're going to have a lot more calls back when your first thing is, hey, I have some clients, I have some people. I think I actually can send you guys some stuff instead of just asking for all the time.
Absolutely. I was sitting in a business planning workshop from Patrick Bet-David last week on Friday, and he made a similar comment, or actually posted a question and kind of challenged us to think about a question. And it was, how do other people benefit from knowing you? How do other people benefit from being in your circle? Right.
Yeah.
Are you taking, or are you putting stuff out there that, right? Do you have opportunity? What benefits do you have to provide to other people? And more importantly, how do they benefit from being around you?
Yeah. And the beauty of it doesn't matter what industry, what job you're in, you can always be doing that. Right. And it's just a different way to shift it. But I mean, if you think about it in practice, it's a lot easier to get people to be interested in looking for your success when they're directly tied to it as well.
Yep. So I guess let's kind of maybe shift this into kind of more in the insurance specific talk of how to leverage your product, or we'll call it your value proposition, which ultimately your product is built into that, right? I would think it would be, because we're ultimately trying to sell and make money. I'm still hung up on 95 million in revenue, bro. That's so sick, nasty, man. But
I'm just pissed it was 5 million short, so I feel like that was
right. You'll get it in 2024, right? But so let's talk about like how you can position your product to also be part of that value proposition. And honestly, I kind of want you to talk about Champ, and I think a lot of that is just education. You didn't really need to even pitch me Champ. You educated me on Champ, and I'm sold. Right? Because it was like, wait, what? And this is now, again, not everybody I think is going to receive the information that way. And I did have to probably go through that presentation 3 different times to really get a grasp of it. But like, what would be your advice or insights on how to, again, position your product or pivot with your product into your value proposition to where it does kind of go hand in hand with the value that you're trying to bring? Does that make sense? You get my question on it? Okay.
Yeah. And so, I mean, going back to the whole reason why this is even designed and created was to help the existing problem, which is, again, like group major medical, and why it sucks and why it's common to see a double-digit increase every year. And for 5-6 years, it's done that, right? And so the idea is that the elevator pitch would be, is not replacing your existing coverage or your broker. So you're keeping all the relationships you have, and we're just simply helping you have a massive amount of way to have less spend on your major medical. So it's kind of a health incentivized benefit that has a lot of other side effects with it too. And so when we're working with other people that work with businesses, right? And let's just say, for example, people that already do like group health insurance for businesses for the easiest solution, right? We can either cold call that business owner, or we can use and partner with an existing broker that has a client base. And we can say, you keep everything the same. You're simply just adding it to your suite that you do. And the benefit is that your renewals are going to be so solidified, so concrete that they won't need to shop other people or get other quotes, right? So it keeps you in there. And then there's so much more savings and money available for them to have, that now you can probably have more employees that are signing up for it. You can have more people that are buying other life insurance or disability or things like with that as well, right? And so that's kind of the idea, is we're not kicking anyone out. We're just taking the relationships and making it better and adding that kind of value, right? And so you put that with payroll, you put that with PEO, you put that with anybody that sells any kind of widget to a business. And the end of the day, the proposition is that when they say yes, they're better off than before they met you. And that's a rare thing to have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, it goes back to you. I mean, you said it. It's the relationship. I think sometimes too, and I mean, me and Pops have definitely gone through that on some of those bigger accounts that we had worked in the past. And it was like, making sure that they really understand that we're not coming in to replace, we're coming in to almost, highlight you. and not, it's like, and it's so funny because some people will look at it the other way. It's not collaborative whatsoever. It's no, these people are coming in trying to take my business. And it's not collaborative. It is combative. Right. And it's like, how do you, what would be your, insights or advice on how to overcome that objection, or that, that their mindset of, hey, no, like you're my enemy, versus how you can help?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're not doing our job if that's the case and they feel it that way too. I mean, I think the other, it's how they are initially introduced to you, right? If you met them at some kind of a networking event and saying, hey, I have a bunch of clients that, we don't do these things, and on purpose, we do very few things. So then when, again, I come across Tony and say, hey, we have some Medicare people, he's not ever thinking that, oh, there's going to be a day where I'm going to try to like start writing it ourselves, right? And again, like, being able to spell it would be, a good start to that too. But it goes, I think, really to being a specialist what you do, and realizing like, and celebrating other people's successes and what they are good at doing, and allow them to continue doing it. Right. So if you can stay in a very, very small kind of niche and be able to help every other thing, then that spider web back to you is a lot larger than it would be if you try doing everything yourself and cutting everybody out.
Right. So, I mean, we're sitting here talking about it. Can you actually talk about what Champ is? Kind of wanted to turn that over to you, just because I'm sure people are like, wait, what? Because, I don't know. I'd almost kind of question what you just said there, because I think at some point, for me, like Medicare doesn't apply to everybody, right? They've got to be 65 but I think, obviously with your product, dude, it applies to so many different types of we'll call them different lanes, different alleys, different verticals, whatever you want to call it, right? Like, I mean, it's so complementary in so many different ways, where there's obviously like not everybody's going to be on Medicare. So then it almost kind of like, do you want to try and get out of, like, for me, I do, obviously I'm property and casualty, but that's not all that I do, right? I wanted to kind of cast a wider net. But I think in your scenario, your net is already so wide because of how complementary Champ plan and everything, and obviously everything else that you're doing with AffordaCare and your benefits. Talk through what Champ is, and just a little bit of education so people know what we're referencing. Y'all, you guys heard him bring it up. If you have, especially if you're on the commercial property and casualty side, and you have any business owners or businesses that you're working with that use ADP for their payroll, you need to connect with Guilfoile. But talk about what Champ is.
Yeah, so every single business and every W-2 in America is eligible for it. So that's the good news. And we're solving just basically the two biggest problems, which is pay and benefits, right? And so ultimately, when a business owner purchases it, when a broker brings this in, or however they hear about this, right, they're going to have a mini medical or kind of a super mech, which is like that ACA coverage for minimum essential coverage. Effectively, the entire family is getting unlimited urgent care, primary care, like in-person mammograms, colonoscopies, like everything you could actually do like in an actual doctor's office. And then you're getting unlimited prescriptions. You're getting cat mental health consultations for like your dogs and cats on a veterinary basis. And the idea is that you're basically giving kind of like all your small and your medium claims are now unlimited, and they're free, and they're for the whole family. It's no health questions guaranteed issue. So we're effectively kind of accomplishing that first goal by, if they have an existing plan, we're offloading all these small claims, which massively helps the renewal. And if they don't have any coverage, you as an employer, especially for people that are, part-time or seasonal or wouldn't normally get benefits, you can say day $1 everybody that works for me has an unbelievable unlimited kind of $0 copay plan. And then the incentive on this is that anytime a business owner offers a pre-tax deduction, it's saving them FICA dollars on that, which again, if you need to go that we certainly can, right? And then there's another aspect to it where if you pay things with post-tax dollars like life insurance or a Roth, right, you're going to pay tax on one side or the other. But the idea is if you don't pay it on the front end of it, like a Roth, when you collect that money, or like a life insurance, you're not paying taxes on the back end, right? Mm-hmm. So the idea is that it uses two components, and the idea is that you're saving more money in taxes than you're actually receiving in benefit on a monthly basis. So there is a cost, but it's basically guaranteed for every person to increase their paycheck a couple $100 a month, a couple $1,000 a year, and the employer is saving hundreds of dollars in their FICA just like they would if they offered health insurance or anything else. So we're basically paying people to say yes to have coverage for all their employees.
Yeah, it's a no-brainer product, man.
Yeah.
When I looked at it, I was like, this is probably in my opinion, I was like, this from a sales standpoint, from just looking at the product, it's got to be the easiest product to sell from that standpoint. But then getting in front of the right people that can make that decision for that company, that's a whole different ball game, right? Like you can't download a list of people like you can for Medicare and just pick up the phone and start cold calling them trying to sell Medicare supplements. Like the way you find the right decision makers for this is a totally different thing. It's all, y'all led to it earlier, it's all relationships, right? It's all networking and relationships, and who do you know and can you introduce me to? And
and ultimately, we're selling money, right? That's I think the best way to describe it. And it seems super easy on the surface, right? And there's just kind of like that point of kind of like that dam breaking where it just push, and then it kind of like it goes downhill, right? But yeah, I think that's again where I think the heart of this entire call kind of leads to is how do you basically then get to somebody in a position that can take in that message and say yes. And I guess the only thing is that since it sounds that too good to be true thing, there's almost like initial skepticism that comes into it. And there's where a lot of the education comes importantly. And of course, if you have that connection to the relationship that can vouch for you, that's where a lot of that stuff starts, right? So when we work with big companies and they have already vetted this and you can just kind of piggyback on that, then of course it, dominoes from there.
Right. How did you specifically get introduced to this product?
So one of the actual first agents that I had, we were training and we were knocking on doors, and the idea was that kind of have some kind of semblance of what this could look like, or because at the end of the day, right, it was a lot of the supplemental stuff, right, where we know that we can have deductions on this part, but also if they receive like a insurance medical payment, that they don't get taxed on that part of it, right? So there's kind of there was a lot of the stuff kind of as we were kind of going through it, what that looked like in practice, and if there was actually possible to kind of create something and move enough of the knobs like that. So when we started the AffordaCare side and did all the major medical, one of my best friends in the whole world kind of went and started kind of work on the tech side of all that stuff, right? So when we kind of came back together, we had all the clients that we were already doing the major medical health insurance for, and they had the shell and the concept of kind of what this is. And so we kind of merged a lot of the clients that we had, and it has just grown to be something that I would never have imagined. I mean, no, I guess you can imagine it, you can wish for it, but to live it, that's where it kind of gets kind of crazy. And we're kind of living that part, and it's still kind of a pinch me moment, I feel like a lot of days.
You've been at it for, like you said, 13, maybe 14 years now. At what point did you realize, hey, I'm onto something here?
Probably like 2 years ago, I think is where it was.
I swear, probably me too, man. Yeah.
It's just levels, you know what I mean? And I think we'll like, I'll watch back on this, 10 years from now and was like, yeah, we didn't even have an idea of, how small we were right now compared to where it's going. Right. So I think it's all perspective, all relative. I don't think the belief changed, but I think the success of seeing it, I think that's definitely kind of like growing a lot of confidence, and not just with me, but a lot of people that kind of been either half doing it, kind of watching the sideline, and kind of like that butt kick to be like, okay, like I can't, almost kind of like the crypto stuff, right? Where it's like, damn it, Bitcoin's at 100,000. I really should have kept my $7,000, Bitcoin or whatever. True story. But yeah, I mean, stuff like that.
Well, it's funny though, but you brought up how it kind of all formed, right? And everything like that. And it was ultimately, you didn't say it, but it's through a strategic partnership. And that's kind of what I wanted to talk about here for the tail end of the show is just, going back through. And again, let's look through the 13 to 14 years of AffordaCare and everything you've done with Champ. And even I look at my, my 10 years now that I've been doing, and Tony's 20, but you're 20, right? You are official. You're 20 plus years in. Mm-hmm. Yep. And you look through that and it's like, dude, some of my biggest deals, some of my biggest like revenue generating, whatever that came through my agency, man, was through a strategic partnership. it was through somebody that just introduced me to somebody, and that person introduced me to somebody. And I mean, and it just changed everything. One person who really kind of, I'm not going to lie, and it's funny, we don't do a ton of business together, but I love the dude. He was just recently on here, and I know you know him, Steve. No, not you. Is Ryan Chikelli. Ryan Chikelli is, like, I think a really, really good example of what it's like to be a strategic partner. And this was years ago, and what do you know, is because I was sitting next to him at a SWAT event, and we just started getting to talking, man, and I'm like, damn. Like, I mean, this guy's got, and so it's like, and then we start leveraging that. We can send him for annuities and stuff like that. Even, talk through that, man. Like, how has strategic partnerships changed I know they've changed. I'm in the WhatsApp chats. I'm obviously part of the strategic partnership, right, with you guys. And I also want you to talk about how you have it structured, right? Because there's a ton of strategic partnerships out there, but then how do you continue to keep them as partnerships? Well, it's like, you got to have infrastructure, you got to have back office, you got to make sure people actually get paid, you got to be favorable and this and that, or flexible and here. Talk about, again, the power. I know we're talking a lot about the power of relationships, but the power of true strategic partnerships, not just having a relationship. Obviously, a relationship is involved, but strategic partnership, and ultimately how you keep those in place. Yeah.
Well, first of all, shout out to Ryan. I didn't know that's how you say his name, but shout out, great guy. And I think it's so cool, and I love that you said that, Joe, because if you look at like what the final deal was, you look at the spider web of, again, like how you met your wife, right? And like what things needed to happen. Like if I hadn't been on this, boat, or hadn't been on this thing, or hadn't met this person, never would have been at this event. Like there are so many things that literally one thing in your life changing would have derailed the entire life that you have. It would have been totally different. And so I think it is mind blowing to think about what things could have been or what haven't happened, right? Just because we changed little actions of the people we met, right? And so I think when it goes to the actual like partnerships, relationships, and how we got deals done, I think almost looking back of your own circle of like what you did to do those things and try to almost like repeat those types of things again. But yeah, I mean, I think it all comes back to, like, as we've talked about a bunch of different times now, what you can do to add value for those people up front and what kind of makes sense for both people, right? So a big thing that we try to do is when you have somebody who really has an incredible amount of value, like we have some incredible like PEOs that we work with. And the idea behind a PEO is that it's one company that has thousands of companies that's well over probably hundreds of thousands of people. And on a single deal like that, you can, make a king's ransom of lifetime money forever, right? And so you have relations like that. What do we do to have as many people that I know that, work with us, and how can we like send business to those people, knowing that every single dollar that goes there, we're going to get 5 or 10 back from that, right? So it's it's hurting the masses, like, hey, we have something absolutely mind-blowing crazy, and you have to kind of focus your effort on helping this person, and having the whole tribe go, and then they get overwhelmed and like, all right, we can't not miss this relationship, and so they're that motivated to kind of send business back. So that's, I guess, like one really good example I can think of.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's like they're obligated to reciprocate, I think, is how you're supposed to say it. Or there might be an actual saying there, but they just feel the obligation of like, shit, Steven sent me so much, dude. Like I have to send him something now, right?
You're super guilty, and you are it's exactly what you're saying. Yeah, you are literally at the point where you're obligated to do.
Well, how do you go? Let's be real practical with it. I mean, how do you go into a freaking conversation with confidence and being able to close that deals of that magnitude, right? I know how much you can get paid. If you get 100,000 lives, I mean, shit, I knew how much I was going to make on just a 3,000 member call center. So, like, what do you do? Like, how do you even? I mean, is there a routine to it? How do you even get ready to hop onto a call with? I mean, I know some of the companies and stuff that you work with, but even let's use the ADP, for example, right? Now, I know you guys have been doing that for years, but let's just for sake of example, right? Like that's a big fucking deal to just hop on and close, right? And it takes time. How do you do that?
It's both, but I'd say just be a real person. And here's what I mean by that is like there's been like meetings and stuff where there's people that have flown in from different countries, and it's like the most like intimidating like boardroom you could imagine. They have like 6 attorneys on one side, and you got like people that are, making probably 10 million plus a year in their like C-suite position. And the end of the day, like people are people, right? And what do people like? They like relating to and having fun and being an enjoyable person to be around, right? So we were on a call, and I can't tell you who it is, but this was probably one of the most like intimidating positions in the entire world of like this person's like title, right? And I'll tell you in a couple months, but it was, everyone was just like super stone faced, trying to be like super ultra serious, whatever. And he had an experience with being an auctioneer, and he talked about it a couple of different times. And I knew that from like his background too. So what did I do? What did Stephen Guilfoile do? Instead of all the like super questions where I was like, hey, could you like give us like a 10-second version of like being like an auctioneer, and like give us like your little like spin or whatever. And he just like lit up and gave like the funniest, most amazing like auctioneer thing. And you can tell like all the tension in that room just like left, because it gave him permission to be a human. And it showed that like we were also human. And it's like, hey, you work with people you like and respect. And so if you can deliver on at least one of those two, you're in a pretty good position with it, right? So I think just like realizing that in the day of it's like, hey, like it would help me and it would help you, and I don't hate you. So I think there's definitely something there. But at the end of the day, again, we're lucky enough to have something of just utmost value, importance. And it's one of those things where it takes a lot of energy to say no to this. And I think when you do that and you are real, I think it goes a long way.
Absolutely. Absolutely. How many, because you've grown obviously quite large, how many agents are tied in with the AffordaCare and working with you?
So right now there's about 32,000 that are contracted. Now we know that there's a huge difference of, signing a piece of paper and committing to something and doing it. But I mean, like this, we've had thousands and thousands of like 1089s that have got sent out, and like probably 5 times that this year. And so it's one of those things where like I still remember like, like the first person I had in my car, and we're going door to door and stuff, and kind of like that one-on-one thing, right? And having that first thing to now having people that, I've never even met before and will probably even never meet or never know their name. And that's a crazy difference of what that feels like. Right. And again, it goes back to just, I think, being true to where your roots are, being humble, being appreciative of how hard it was to get there, being grateful of all the people that helped you there. And I think just at the end of the day, it comes down to gratitude. And I think as long as you have that and you always respect that, and you realize that, it's a blessing today, it could be gone tomorrow, and there's enough things that could change your life that you could be right back where you were. And so when you have those people that are starting and you see yourself and where they were, 14 years ago, going 0 for 90 for me, is times that I need to kind of, step back and realize that, there's a bigger picture than just, today and just myself.
Mm-hmm. Right. So I have to ask, I'm sure anybody watching, or if you're catching the replay, and also guys, if you have any questions or anything, definitely don't hesitate to drop those in the comments. My Facebook's being a little glitchy, so I can't tell if we're actually getting comments. I see people watching, but you got over 30,000 freaking contracted agents. Regardless of them writing or not, you still got a contract, and that's paperwork, and that's back office. That's all kinds of shit you got to do. You guys did over 95 million in freaking revenue last year alone. How many people, how do you manage all of this, dude? How do you, who do you have on your team? It goes back to relationships, maybe some strategic partnerships as well. How do you freaking manage all of it, dude? I'll just keep it right there. How the hell? That's a lot. A lot of agents, a lot of money, a lot of 1099s to send out, a lot of, goodness, man.
Yeah, I'd say it's relatively almost as hard as it would be if you just had, let's say, if you're starting out, let's say you're doing life insurance, you get 10 agents that are kind of working with you, right? It's about that hard because what you're doing is you're just kind of leveling up channels or kind of floors. And so the same 8-10 people are probably the same people that I'm still talking to, right? And a lot of these guys have been with me, from the very beginning, followed through the entire process. And that's, I think, also what's really special is seeing people that have gone this whole way, that have struggled mightily through this and really kind of coming into their own is probably one of the most rewarding things. But again, it's kind of the delegating part, which is, I think, really, really difficult to do, especially when you have a vision of where you want it to go. You're really specific on it, and to let someone else kind of like take your dream on and trust that whatever your vision is, that they'll be able to do at least 80%, of that. And so it's having passed that vision, that mindset down a bunch of different channels, and knowing that end result, that end product is pretty close to what yours is.
Yeah.
So it's
beautiful.
It's not that it's easy, but I think that the more that you trust the people that you're working with, and you see them growing confidence and getting really good at it, and you see them like I remember a couple of guys I saw like their presentation, whatever, maybe a couple of years ago, and I was just like, oh God, this is really painful, right?
What am I doing? Yeah.
Right.
And then you see him like, a couple of weeks ago, and it's like, this person has grown tremendously, and it's like, I don't even recognize the same person, right? And you see it like with your kids all the time, Joe, too, right? How they've grown and how great communicators they are. And yeah, sometimes you just let them grow on their own, and you're surprised of like all the growth that they have. And it's cool.
It is literally the hardest part. I remember it's funny. So I got back on the phones this past week. We're doing this. I don't know if anybody's seen on my personal profile. We're doing a Texas raffle. We're trying to close some auto insurance and make a last, end of the year push. And, but within that, like I had my guys going back, hey, anybody that you've talked with in the past year that you did not close, let's go back to them and let's freaking rerun those numbers. Let's go. And I remember when Todd's one of my top sales guys, when he first started, or even with Dylan in the back when he first started, dude, you hear those calls, man, and it's just like, oh my gosh, like they're so hard to listen to, man, especially for somebody like myself. Like, and I'm not being anyway. I'm being still very humble here, but it's like I can get on the phone, and Tony heard me. It's like I've been doing it for years, and I haven't been on the phones, and I can't tell you how long. It just boom, I can do it, right? So the delegation piece is the hardest, but it is the most rewarding, because it's funny. Todd was actually going back through and listening to some of the phone calls to try and, pick up some rapport or whatever from when he last, and he's like, dude, I had to stop listening to the calls. I don't know how the hell I was even selling policies back then. I was like, me either, bro. But it's like, you look at him now, I mean, the dude knows, and he's only been in insurance for literally like a year. He knows so freaking much about insurance, and he's like one of the best scripted on the phones and well-versed on the phones, I should say. It's so funny. I love that you said that too, because it is the hardest part. It really, especially when it's like, I know what I'm trying to build, and don't get me wrong, their dreams and their house of dreams are also built into my house of dreams. I make that very clear and very important. But at the same time, it's like where we're taking this thing, and then having to just trust that they're going to do it. At least, again, Perry says, man, if you can just do 50% of what I do, I can just find 2 of you. But that delegation piece is the hardest part, man, especially with something as big as you've got rocking, dude. I mean, that's tough, man. I mean, you got millions of dollars, right, that are on the line, we'll say. But
100%.
I love that, dude.
I realize I'm 6 minutes late for this call, but
you gotta go.
My funniest story on this is my very first call I ever had. Or my first in-person door. I'm walking through the whole presentation, get done, and I look at her, and she's like, oh my God, sweetie, this must be your first time ever doing this, huh? And I was like, sure it was. And, we've all been there, right? So we can, but no, I appreciate you guys so much. I love you. So proud of you all, what you guys are doing in building this community. And I'm just happy to be a little part of it. And here's 2025 for all of us.
Yes, absolutely, brother.
Always
love you,
good
man.
to see you, man.
Yep. Have a great day, dude. We'll talk to you soon. Later.
Good. Bye.
See ya. All right, Insurance Syndicate. It's that time. Mr. Merwin, go ahead and close us out, my man.
Yeah. It's Wednesday. It's the peak of the week. It ain't time to slow down. It's time to close it out strong. This is officially, like, if you look at the calendar for the rest of the year, this is basically the last real week of the year, because next week is completely wrecked with Christmas falling on Wednesday. Maybe you can get some work done Monday, Tuesday, but after that, it's pretty much over. So thanks for tuning in. Pedal down to the metal for the rest of this week, man. Do your best to close it out strong, because this is, again, pretty much the end of the year. Last show for Winning on Wednesday.
Let's go.
We will be back on January, I believe it is 8th.
It'll be I guess it won't be the 1st. Yeah, it's New Year's Day. So yeah,
Correct.
we'll be back in a couple of weeks, y'all.
So we will see y'all on January 8th, ready to go for the new year, looking fresh, looking tight.
Yes. I love it. I love it,
then.
y'all. And I just want to give a heartfelt shout out and thank you to everybody that has continued just to tune in and listen every single week. We really appreciate y'all. It's been an amazing year in 2024 specific, just for Syndicate Media and things that we've got rolling out, y'all. And we've got some really cool stuff that should be pretty much ready to rock and roll come January, and some pretty big announcements that I think you guys are all going to like. So thank you guys so much. Huge heartfelt shout out and thank you from the Merwinator and from myself. We appreciate all that you guys do. We are nothing without our members. So thank you guys. Again, peak of the week. Stay after it. Have a great Christmas. Happy holidays. And I guess we'll see you in the group, but we'll catch you guys live in a couple weeks in the new year. All right, guys. See you.
Adios.